Okay, in today's video I'm going to show you how to rebuild a basic flat or platform pedal. These pedals are very common. A very similar model is made by VP as well as Wellgo. This one is branded Btwin, which is the Decathlon brand, but it's basically a rebranded VP pedal. I've had these for a couple of years and put around 6,000 kilometers on them. So they're pretty amazing pedals. They just kind of keep going and stuff. But now they've started to develop some play in them, and I'm gonna open it up and rebuild it and show you how to do that. Okay, before we jump in, you need to make sure that you have a pair of needle nose or something similar pliers in order to do this. You're gonna need a small socket wrench. This is a 10 mil that goes into the top here, but something that will fit in here. You're probably gonna need an Allen key, a hex key to remove the cage bolts, and maybe a screwdriver to pop off the reflectors. And if your pedal's like mine, you're gonna need a screwdriver to remove the clips here on the sides. Okay, in stage one, we need to gain access to the bolts that hold the cage down. Start by removing the reflectors. Then removing these bad boys. Then removing these bad boys. Okay, after remove the last one, the cage will just come off. Set that aside. And now the goal is to remove this plastic dust cap from the end here, which can be a little bit tricky. You can use a knife or a screwdriver to try to work into the side here and then pry it off. Another method that we might end up doing is using a screw and kind of screwing down in there and then using the screw to pull the cap off. It does damage the cap, but it's easy to repair and makes the whole process easier. Let's try to see what we can make work here. Okay, I've played with this for a few minutes trying to get a sharp object down around here at the side, and I just can't do it. There's a possibility that a knife might do it, but then I'm worried that I might cut my hand if it fails. So I'm going to use this method of screwing a hole into the top of this. So just get some force going. What will happen is that screw will sit down in the plastic. It doesn't have to go down super far. So you keep screwing, and then the screw will go down in there, and then you can actually use pliers to pull it out. Another thing is, if the plier thing doesn't seem to be working, is if you keep screwing, you'll bottom out on the top of the spindle, and it will just push the cap out all by itself. And this is what you'll get. And then we're going to use some JB Weld or some rubber cement to fix the top of this when we're all done. Okay, now we're going to try to open this pedal up. We have to remove the bolt that's down in there, the nut that's down in there. So I'm going to hold the axle, the Allen key, and then use my wrench like this. And that's it. All right, now we've got that out. Go on to the next one. So if you have a socket wrench that will grab that but fit in here, that would be fantastic. I tried, I don't have one. So that's where the needle nose pliers are going to come in. So I'm going to sit this down in here so I can grab both sides of the nut that's down in there and then turn it. And if things are getting a little tricky, go back to the spindle here, and then you can rotate the spindle while holding that nut. And this seems, so I'm just spinning the axle and holding the nut in place. And it's going to seem a little counterintuitive, but I'll show you when it comes open. You see the axle's actually coming out there. You want to be careful because you've got some of the little bearings there. This that we were just working with and holding on to is actually the top bearing race. And so it's not meant to screw down tight, which is why I'm able to hold it with needle nose pliers and then get it out. So at this point we've got bearings, they're going to start coming out, so you want to make sure that you keep track of those and not lose any. Some from the top, you have some bearings in the top, and then you're going to have some bearings in the bottom as well. Okay, when you get your pedal open, this is essentially what you should have. You have your spindle here. This is a rubber grommet that keeps dust and stuff out from the inside of the pedal. You've got your upper bearing race that looks like a nut. You've got a washer with flat edges on the inside, and then you've got your final nut on the end, and then your little bearings. So what we're going to do is clean all this up, and then clean the pedal body up as well, and then put the thing back together. Okay, once you get the pedal cleaned up, now it's time to start putting it back together. And this is technically the tricky part. The spindle goes in like this, and you're going to have ball bearings on this side as well as ball bearings on this side, and so you have to get those little balls in there without losing them or getting them messed up, you know, off their track, in order to get the whole thing back together. So let's attempt to do that. What we're going to do is get a paintbrush and put grease on it, like a bearing grease. I'm going to paint down inside the pedal here onto the bearing race that's down inside there, and I want to get it thick enough that the bearings are going to stick there, and we don't want to have to do this rebuild anytime in the future, so thick enough that it's going to last a while. And then while I'm at it, I'm going to do the other side as well. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now I'm gonna take the upper race. I'm gonna put a little coat of grease on it as well. Just like that. And then now I'm going to take half of the bearings that came out of the pedal and put them on here. I'll show you when I'm done what that looks like. Okay, so when you can see here, got 14 little bearings on there, and that's pretty much ready to go. So I'm going to set it aside for now, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grease the spindle here and put the remaining 14 bearings here on the spindle, and then put the pedal halfway back together. So I got a little screwdriver there. Just going to push these down in there and set them down in so that they're touching the race. Okay, I think because of the lighting it might be a little hard to see how that worked out, but all the bearings are down in there, sitting where they're supposed to, and because of the grease they'll stay there pretty well. So now we want to gently flip this over, and we're going to do the other side, and this could be okay. So we got to put this top race in now with the bearings on it, and so I'm just going to try to pick it up like this, and then I'm going to insert the nut up through the bottom, just pushing it up gently with my finger, and then flipping it over, and then there you can see sitting right there, and none of the balls are out of place. It's ready to go. Now, this is a great setup. We're ready to kind of put the thing back together. So you want to take that rubber gasket and make sure you put it back on the spindle here. Don't forget to do that, otherwise you'll be pulling the whole thing apart. And then this is where it gets a little bit tricky, is that the top race is threaded on. So when I insert this, it's going to push that race out the top. But because of the grease, the little balls should stay in place. And so I'm going to put the spindle in here and then see if I can get the threading to hook up on that race in there, and then screw it back together. Now, as I do this, get to a place where I'm going to need the needle nose pliers in order to hold that race in place. And then I can just keep screwing this in, just like that. And put that rubber gasket in there, and there it is. That sat in there really, really well. So now we just got to put the washer and the nut back on, and then the dust cap, and then the cage on the outside, and we're done. So these pedals work a lot like a cone hub. So if I twist this, then the pedal, you can feel it's too tight. So you have to be mindful of this, and it might take a few times for you to get the tension right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the washer in here. And then I'm going to put the nut back on the top. Screw that down tight like that, and my pedal feels a little chunky. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these needle nose pliers, and I'm going to grab the race, and I'm going to turn the race backwards, like I'm going to back it out against that nut. And what that's going to do is free the pedal up, but tighten the system down, just like the way that a cone hub works. Just like that. And I am pretty happy with how that turned out. There's zero play in it, and it's good. It's excellent. Let's just to finish things out here, I'm gonna go ahead and tighten this up. Make sure it's nice and tight, and then ready to put the dust cap back on. Okay, so I took my dust cap and I sealed the inside with a glue, a JB Weld. If you're not familiar with it, you need to be careful using it. It's pretty potent, strong stuff, but it just needs to be waterproof. So put that back on there like that. And then basically we're done. We just got to put the cage back on. If your pedal is like mine, where one side was a clipless SPD style and the other side was a flat, then you need the grip to go on the flat side and the non-grip side to go on the SPD side. Okay, put the SPD back on. Fortunately it's notched, so it's hard to screw that up. If you have some Loctite, it'd be worth putting some on there for this. I can tighten up the other side. And that is how you rebuild basic VP or Wellgo style pedal that does not use cartridge bearings. Hope you enjoyed the video. Now go wrench on your bikes.